Dr. Randall, the Soul Doctor, author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet, shares her 40 years of experience as a cross-cultural practitioner, medical futurist, and expert in 20 different modalities of healing, along with amazing interviews with some of the leading minds in medicine and big thinkers in all walks of life. The stories of our lives are the woven energies of our soul's paths. They feed and ignite the spiritual light that nourishes the universal soul, the one mind, the cosmic consciousness where we all come together. This podcast is going to be a deep dive into the personal stories of people who have made significant contributions to the planet. What formed them? What moved them to become these leaders and innovators that inspire us so? Hi, Connie.
Good afternoon, Madeleine. How are you, my dear?
Oh, I'm just fabulous now that I'm with you. I've spoken with you. I've heard your lovely vibration, but it's so nice to lay my eyes on you after so long. When did we go to the Amazon? What year was that?
Must have been 15, 20 years ago, I'm guessing.
Oh, no, really?
Was it really?
No, it was
10, 15
it was the
years
90s.
ago?
I think it was the 90s because it was after I came and saw you speak. I think it was in Washington at a big holistic medicine conference, and you stole my heart and my interest. And I said, I have to, that Amazon is calling me, and I had to go. And I think I signed up that day.
I think you did, and the point being, we are mirror reflections of each other, and that's what I so enjoy, and that's what we're going to talk about here today. So
all right.
Look forward to it.
So I just want my listeners to know a little bit about you, and Connie has a lot of letters after her name, so like me, she's educated in many different worlds, and she's a PhD in integrative medicine, like I'm a doctor of integrative medicine. She is a master's degree in, actually, she does a lot of work in the jungle primarily, but she, what do you call it, Connie?
Nonprofit work, yes.
Nonprofit. I do a lot of nonprofit work, but I don't have a name for it. Anyway, so it's
and a registered
nice
pharmacist is how I got started.
Yeah, but you're one of the most well-known natural pharmacists in the world.
Would you like to hear the story how it all began?
Well, yes, we'll get there. I do want to know the story how it all began, but I want to know how it even began before that, because I want to understand what makes you tick from the very get-go. Okay.
Exactly.
So anyway, also Connie is an author of several books now, but the one that I first knew about was Jungle Medicine, from magic to, is it magic to transformation, or how does that go?
Jungle Medicine, from medicine to magic.
Medicine to magic, which causes your transformation. Amazing book. And Amazon, so you have another book now, right?
Amazon Speaks.
And then now you're working on a writing book also, or?
Yes, I have writing classes with this women's stories. In other words, our bodies, our stories. You know how this all began? Sometimes there's what medicine will call a medical issue that calls you forth into your transformation.
Mm-hmm. I just have to tell my listeners, because when I went to the Amazon with Connie, and we would sit in circle with the small group that we had, and of course Antonio, our shaman, was always nearby, but sometimes we sat in our own circles, and from across the space, or just looking at Connie, I would see her covered in vines. I mean, she is part of the jungle for real. I mean, it's just astounding, and she's astounding. But I want to just go way back, Connie, and I want to hear, like, where do you come from? Where were you born? When did you first have a connection with nature, and did you know that this was going to be your path?
Very good start of the whole story. I was born in Minneapolis, in a suburb of Minneapolis, a resort town on the water. So I was very much a nature baby from birth, swimming all the time, trees, so on and so forth. And of course, Minnesota is often known as the place of Minnesota nice. In other words, everybody helps everybody else, and everybody in everybody's family is considered good stock and a good spirit. Now, my mother was psychotic, and which I did not know because it was the family secret. Mental health issues were not something that was talked about in those days at all. So in those days, and that's what she was labeled as psychotic. When I look back on it and when I see her and talk to her in my dreams, she said, oh, no, I was just having other states of consciousness that the local small town doctors couldn't understand. There was nobody there to help me with this spiritual emergence. They labeled it as psychotic, with 17 shock treatments and Thorazine and whatever they had, medicine of the day. And so I am her daughter.
It makes you wonder, though. It makes you wonder because sometimes I wonder about these psychotic people, quote unquote, psychotic, and are they in touch with something that, and then we give them medicine to suppress, you know what I mean? That maybe there is something to their connection, and it's too bad now they're using, which makes sense to me, and you probably know about this, psychedelics to treat them.
Yes, very much. We now have permission from the FDA in the world of psychedelics, that they're called. We have permission from the FDA to do limited clinical studies. It's all monitored by the FDA in issues such as alcoholism, end of life, PTSD, and so forth. So what's happening is the so-called 60s and 70s psychedelics are bad, you're going to go mad, has turned into legitimate research. And the new shamans of this generation are the psychiatrists who are learning to use them, in a good and powerful way. So we hope that indeed continues. And of course, my experience in the jungles of Peru, I'm getting ahead of the story, but to answer your question, in the jungles of Peru, we're learning about these substances also personally, while at the same time being frightened to death for my own sanity because I'm my mother's daughter and I didn't know, maybe I'd lose my mind. Maybe I'd go crazy like my mother. And so anyway, from Minnesota and what was labeled as a psychotic mother, but I see her now as a spiritual guide for me. And I ended up going to pharmacy school. It's healthcare. It was just something, let me help. Healthcare, pharmacy. And I believed what they were teaching me in pharmacy school. I totally believed in the synthetic modern chemistry that they were pushing at the time. A medicine originally had to be animal, vegetable, or mineral. We didn't have laboratories to invent modern drugs like Tagamet, Valium, and Prozac. It had to be animal, vegetable, or mineral. It all came from Mother Earth. But of course, we pharmacists at that time had left all of that aside, and we prayed to the great mother of the medicinal chemistry department to teach us about the synthetic modern drugs. And I totally believed that I was going to lift bodies, stamp out disease, and save lives one pill at a time, one silver bullet at a time. So I worked in pharmacies and I filled prescriptions and worked in other pharmacies and filled prescriptions. And then I was working for Kaiser in the San Francisco Bay Area. And as the years were going on, and one day there was this absolutely mind-blowing moment when I said to myself, I looked out at the pharmacy lobby at Kaiser, and the lobby was hugely full of people. And I had this existential crisis of, if all of my pills, my pharmaceuticals, my silver bullets were curing people, how come my lobbies were more full? And it is in those moments of disillusionment, if you listen closely, that is a potential time for change. That is an opportune time for change when things don't seem to be working the way you thought. So noontime at Kaiser, I go up to the employee break room, and I'm eating my whatever at the time, PB&J, whatever it was at the time, and paging through the pharmacy journals just for something to do for my half-hour break. And of course, all these sterile white ads from Pfizer, Lilly, and Merck, the major big pharma companies, boring as heck, all sterile and white, pill bottles, and happy people. And then I opened up to the centerfold of this professional journal. And here was a continuing education trip for pharmacists into the Amazon jungles of Peru to study about the rainforest medicinal plants that have truly become part of modern pharmacy. As a matter of fact, 25% of all drugs filled today from the pharmacist shelves come from plant sources, have either directly from plant sources or they've been semi-synthetically altered a bit. Like aspirin was originally willow bark, the tree, the bark off of the willow tree. We chemically modified it a bit to become acetylsalicylic acid, which we call aspirin. So 25% of our prescription drugs today still have a basis in plant medicine. But of course, I had forgotten all about it, never learned about it, whatever that was. Well, I got to the Amazon jungles of Peru. Oh my gosh, the greatest expression of life on earth. Blue morpho butterflies, 4 or 5 inches across. Monkeys, absolute flocks of 50, 60, 100 parakeets, like I was in the Garden of Eden. And I swear the God of the universe looked at the Amazon and said, this is my playground. From this, I will make the earth indeed from the Amazon. Anyway, we have the professors there teaching us about medicinal plants and, of course, about the animals and so forth there, too. But I became much more fascinated by the locals, the indigenous people. I became fascinated by just the overwhelming connectivity of the Amazon River, the largest river system in the world. I was just smitten by the energy of nature. And interestingly, you know, after a week or 8 days or whatever it was of lectures by the professors from the U.S., second to the last day at lunchtime, we were all eating our lunch, and there was a shaman who came at lunchtime for about 10 minutes to talk a little bit in his costume, in his native costume and his tobacco smoke, to talk a little bit about shamanism. And I thought to myself, circus sideshow. I never heard of the word shaman. We don't learn about the word shaman, healer in pharmacy school. You know, I'm from Minnesota. What do I know?
How old were you then, Connie? What was your age then?
What, 45, 50? You know, I just was, you know, Minnesota. Minnesota is not California. You know, we just were what we were in any event. So he blew his tobacco smoke, had his costume on, and talked a little bit about it. And he said, if anyone would like a real energy healing, you can come to my hut at the end of the path after dinner tonight. So I thought to myself, I want the most bang for my expedition buck. I'm going to stand in line and go to this sideshow. You know, what, you know, all this regalia and all this costume and the blowing of the smoke. It seems so circus sideshow. And I stood in line, and, you know, there were half a dozen people ahead of me. And as I got closer to this hut, Madeline, I could feel something. Something was emanating from that hut, and I became quiet and respectful. I said, whatever is going on there is very powerful. I don't know what it is, but you better be respectful or it's going to come with its scorpion tail and teach you a lesson. So I became very quiet, very respectful, and I said, there is some power in there. What is this? Went inside the jungle hut, sat on a tree stump, and there was a translator there, of course, and the shaman's blowing his tobacco smoke and singing his wonderful enchanted healing songs, and after about 5-8 minutes or so, he stopped the healing. And he said to the translator, tell Connie she's got a block in her neck. As soon as she gets back to the United States, she needs to see a physician right away. And I thought to myself, block in the neck. That's not a Kaiser term. It's not a pharmacy term. Maybe it is a circus sideshow. Maybe it's like a tarot card reading. You know, you're going to meet somebody tall, dark, and handsome. You have a block in your neck. Go see the doctor. I dismissed it, gave him a tip. You know, a few days later, it's back to the United States, back to Kaiser. A few weeks later, I look in the mirror. I'm getting ready for work one day, and I see this big, huge bulge in my neck sticking out like a golf ball. I had thyroid cancer. And I became fascinated. Here's the point. I became fascinated about this man and his invisible medicine of the spirit, that he knew something about my body that I didn't know and my doctor didn't know. So after Western medicine, thank goodness, saved my life. I'm not anti-Western medicine. Oh my God, praise it, praise it. It has absolutely saved my life. But there's also other ways of healing, So after I had the wonderful Western medicine surgery and was well enough to travel, to go back to the Amazon to meet the shaman again, Don Antonio, that I've studied with for 25 years in the jungles of Peru.
Oh, it was Don Antonio that gave you that initial?
And see what this invisible medicine of the spirit, what is this magic? You know, what is this? And so, you know, that's what started the whole path. I went back to the jungle for two reasons. Number one, I felt so much better there. In deep nature, in the greatest expression of life on earth, all of this energy of nature is helping my body recover from that surgery, helping my body, you know, balance itself. And now I had a shaman that I could apprentice with who could give me the trust that I would not lose my mind, maybe like my mother, who, you know, I don't know. But the point is getting rid of that fear. I will take you to other realms of the spirit and bring you back. I will take you to the spirit doctors that do the healing and bring you back. We will make that path an easy path for you, and you will not get lost. You won't get lost in your mind somewhere and have a disastrous result, because certainly other realms of consciousness can certainly be also dangerous if you don't know what you're doing. But that's a bit of the story of how it all got started because of my own healthcare issue. I came back from that trip with Antonio. I left conventional pharmacy and started the Association of Natural Medicine Pharmacists. I said, what in addition to Western medicine heals us? You know, back in those days, I was committing blasphemy and heresy, talking about homeopathy, herbs, nutrients, you know, vitamins. Oh, my goodness. You know, I was just totally...
What year was that, Connie?
Let's see. My first trip to the Amazon continuing education was 1994. So, you know, the subsequent couple of years after that.
Well, that's so interesting because that's about the same time that I was committing heresy at UCLA and going on all those national... I mean, we had a parallel life before we knew we had a parallel life.
Tell me.
You know, I was a professor at UCLA, which and then but I was starting to do, I couldn't keep my hands off it because I knew there was more. Then they taught us, like you said, science was the altar, and I saw very much of a deficiency of spirit in the patients. I said, no, science is not the altar. Science is a great tool.
Yes.
But it's a combination of medicines that makes it really powerful. And you were doing the same thing. That's what I love, same time.
And to fast forward a bit, but relating to exactly what you said, CNN gave me monies and sent me down to the Amazon with a 6-member film crew to document Antonio medicinal plants and so forth. And part of that was to bring him to my home then, which was in Marin County and in San Francisco Bay Area. And you'd never been on a plane, never been in a house with windows on it, never been anywhere. But the point of the matter is, day number 2, he said to me, here's a shaman from the indigenous village deep in, doesn't read and write. What he knows by his experience. And he said to me, day number 2, Connie, now that I'm here in America, do you think I can become a doctor here? I said, well, what are you thinking? Maybe so. Tell me what you're thinking, Antonio. And he said, well, tell me about how your medicine is. I said, well, when you go to doctor's appointments here, largely in the United States, they draw your blood, they do the blood pressure, they x-ray you with special machines. I was explaining to him all of this. And I said, then you come back later and the doctor reads all of these written reports about you and tells you what it is that you've got going on. He looked down at his shoes and he said, I don't think so, Connie. I don't think I want to become a modern doctor. And I said, why not, Antonio? And he said, because there's no magic in it. Because there's no magic. Now, he's also the first one to say, of course, go see a doctor. He's no fool. There's limitations of shamanism as there is with any one kind of medicine. And what I appreciate about him is that he's inclusive. He includes Western medicine, natural medicines, and then, of course, spiritual healing as well. So I love that inclusiveness as opposed to sometimes our Western medicine, we think that this is the only way. Pharmacy, big pharma is the only way to think and go. 80% of the world functions on herbs. They don't have money for big pharma, and they're doing just fine. They are not dying by the age of 7 or 17 in the streets. They're doing just fine with Mother Nature. So
as a matter of fact, it's time to get back more to Mother Nature because all of these medications sometimes are the problem. I mean, a lot of people die from, side effects from a huge number of people do. You know about that.
In addition to helping people women writing their stories, women's stories and what's happened to you in your life, that such as yours, Madeleine, as well as mine, that's made this pivotal change in your life. I'm a healthcare advocate. And what I mean is I go with people to their doctors in the hospitals to make sure that the conversation is complete, to make sure that nothing has been excluded. Because often medicine could be categorized as a system as opposed to a patient care right now. And so your practice is not that. But when you're in a big institution, it's a system. It just has its rules.
Fantastic.
And everybody gets the same thing. So that's what I do. Everywhere from Stanford to the UCSF or wherever I'm at, I just go and, listen respectfully and make sure that everything is in order during their care. Ask questions.
That's beautiful. That's beautiful.
Yeah.
I often do that when I refer my patients to other doctors because they get in the system sort of thing like you're talking about. And they'll ask me, will you go with me? Yes, I'll go with you. And it makes a difference. First of all, it makes a difference in their outcome because they feel cared for still. And secondly, you can be interpreter for them.
That's what it is. That's what it is. And, oftentimes after the first 10 minutes, I just say I'm a pharmacist, friend of the family. I'm not there to create any divisiveness, but to be inclusive. And, after about 10 minutes, the doc and I are talking shorthand to each other just to help get to the point, and the relationships always bloom and grow from there.
Nice.
Yeah, it really is. And it's just nice to be able to pass that on, because of course, when my primary care physician said, "Oh, it's your thyroid, the big lump here. It's your thyroid. Go upstairs to the surgeon at Kaiser. Go up to the surgeon. Yeah, upstairs. I'll write you a referral. I'll call up there. Go up." So I walked upstairs, and the receptionist said, "Okay." She said, "Oh, okay, this doctor so-and-so has some free time to see you. Step into his room." So while the doctor is examining my throat and so on and so forth, and he says, "Oh, so you're a pharmacist here?" I said, "Yes, and I'll be moving on soon." He said, "Well, why is that?" I said, "Because I've established the Association of Natural Medicine Pharmacists, to be inclusive." And he said to me, I bet it gets your gall to come crawling back to me for surgery now, doesn't it?" And I said, "Thank you so much. I think I need to leave now and find another physician," which I did, and just had a terrific
because
experience.
he didn't understand you. It's not about that at all. You believe in the combination of medicines.
Right.
You said so at the get-go. So listen, I want you to tell me, other than, I know the magical experience, your first magical experience you had with Antonio. Can you tell us, I'm sure you could tell us many, but tell us another, or maybe the most, or if there is a most profound magical experience you had.
Yes. It occurred when, the perfect experience to share is, it occurred when, after I had my surgery, the reason I could spend some time with Antonio, the shaman in the jungles, is because he was building a medicinal plant garden. So he needed help digging the roots and clearing the path and so forth. So I went back to Peru to help him. I was being respectful. I don't know. I don't want to turn my body and my mind and my life over at me. What if he's black magic or something, negative? I want to be respectful of myself, and make sure that we're on the same page here. And so I was just respectful and quiet and did what he said about digging up plants and so on and so forth. And I was, at the end of every day, he gave me the tobacco smoke healing. And of course, I couldn't speak any Spanish, and that's a great place to be, because you're not in your head. You're just in your body. Well, after a couple of weeks of that, one day I go to put on my rain boots, because you have to wear your rain boots every day because it rains. That's why they call it the rainforest. And I noticed that my right big toe, my right great toe, when I went to put my boots on that morning, was green and red and oozing pus, and, obviously was infected. I said to myself, no problem. I'm a pharmacist, so I have a couple of first aid kits, all the oral antibiotics, the topical antibiotics, and I started to reach for it. And I said, why don't I take this problem to the shaman? Little as it is, I thought it was little. Let's just take it to the shaman, see what he says. So with a translator, I ran down to the shaman's hut, Antonio's hut, and, I pointed to my toe, and he said, oh, my goodness, of course, jungle rot, from my foot being all sweaty and those boots every day, all day long. And he said, we have to take care of this right away, because I'm the only doctor you have. We don't want any sepsis, any blood poisoning here to come from all of that. So we want to take care of that right away. So I said, how are you going to do that? Well, he started to collect six or seven different plants from the Amazon. I looked them up later, many anti-inflammatory, some antimicrobial. Papaya he put in there, the enzymes of papaya to kind of break down the pus in there. And then he put a pinch of salt in there, salt into a foot bath soak. Now that sounds pretty Western medicine. You soak your foot in some medicine. In this case, it's herbs. And so he so beautifully then let this wonderful, huge tub of herbs and water sit in the sun and get all macerated and all combined in there. And then he had me put my right foot into the tub of herbs, and with his big calabash, his big natural scoop, he was pouring this wonderful healing medicine down my leg and soaking my foot. And I thought to myself, attending physician, we use that term. And here's this man, if love can heal and attending physician can heal, this is what's happening. He was taking care of my foot as if it were my heart. And, every couple hours, new medicine, so on and so forth. And this was going on day number 2. We did some more foot baths. And by then, the villagers were coming by. And they were all curious, of course, of the white woman that's there. But, of course, they just want to know what the local gossip is. So what's going on? What's going on? And, of course, to begin with, I was a little dismissive. I said, oh, it's just my toe. Don't worry about it, ladies. It's just my toe. They kept coming back anyway, and they kept hanging around. And as I sat there, and my attending physician, my shaman, was taking care of my foot, and all these people were gathering, I said, the power of healing in community, in community. When people say, how are you? They mean it. How are you, Madeleine, today? It's not just, oh, fine. It's we care how you are, because in these indigenous villages, if I am the potter and my foot's out of commission, there's going to be no pots. If I am the mother, my kids are not going to get fed tonight. If I am, and so within a tribal system, you are important. And that's still true today. So I suggest to all of our listeners and viewers, if somebody asks you how you are, do tell them and do ask back with generous reciprocity and do care, because the healing power of community, So day number 3, we're still doing all of this, and I'm appreciating the attention and so forth. But about day number 3, I'm thinking to myself, maybe tonight I'll just take those antibiotics. Really 3 days of this foot bath. I mean, come on. It's, I've learned a lot, but let's just see. Tomorrow I'll think about it. Well, that night, as always, he does the healing with the tobacco smoke and so forth. And so that night he heals me. And then that night, for his final foot bath, he made me put both feet into the foot bath, the liquid water with the medicinal plants, and started pouring the herbs from my knees all the way down. I said, well, that's odd. It's only my right great toe, my right big toe. Doesn't this guy know anatomy? I mean, come on, both legs? Yeah, okay. And I thought to myself, that's strange. Oh, well, tomorrow I'm going to start my antibiotics anyway. So do what you're going to do. It was dark, time to eat a bit. Everybody goes to sleep when the sun goes down. Suddenly, my dream state was so powerful. In this dream that I was having, I was sitting in a room, empty room, and I looked at the doorway where this big, ferocious entity was coming through the door at me. And suddenly, I had enough strength in my own 2 legs to stand up, go over to the entity, and fight it off. And it disappeared. And I fell back asleep, and I didn't know how to interpret dreams. I remembered the content, but I didn't give any significance to it. The next morning, when I woke up to put my little flip-flops back on and go down to the shaman, my toe was healed, Madeleine. The red and the green pus was gone. Now it needed to grow some skin. There was pink that needed to grow, but it was healed. And of course, the scientist in me said, well, that was probably it was going to heal anyway, But the curious part, what is this invisible medicine of the spirit? Before you take these antibiotics, why don't you run down to the shaman, get a translator, and show him the healing power of your foot. So we ran down to Antonio's hut. Shaman Antonio, look, my toe is healed. And he says, yeah, so? Like it was every day. And I said, but it's healed. And he said, Connie, first, how we work together. The first thing you tell me is your dreams of the day. Every morning I have to recite the dreams before we have breakfast, and report to him. So he said, did you have a dream? I said, yes. I dreamt that this bad entity came at me through the doorway, and I had enough force, strength, and power to fight it off. He said, that's what I was doing with both of your legs. I was empowering them to fight off the germs. The entity that was coming was the germ, and I was strengthening both of your legs to be able to fight it off. And I said, oh my gosh. Healing lesson number 4 here, the healing power of spirit. So we had that. The first was the healing power of nature, because we had 6 or 7 herbs from Mother Nature and a foot bath. The healing power of community, how we heal in relationship. The healing power of the attending physician in love. And last, but certainly not least, is the healing power of spirit itself. It was quite an amazing healing for just a little big toe, because it taught me so much. It taught us so much.
And the healing power of you being open and trusting it too.
That brings up another interesting point. There was a University of Minnesota student who came with me. I'm still on faculty there at the Center for Spirituality and Healing. And she asked Antonio one day, she said, what does it take to heal? What does it take to heal? And Antonio said, first of all, you have to want to heal. Now remember, Antonio does not read and write. He has not attended any new agey classes on the healing power of, anything. Or he doesn't have a library of books because he doesn't read and write. So he said, first thing, you have to want to heal. Second of all, you have to believe in the modality that you're going to. In other words, if you don't believe in homeopathy, chances are that might be the least that you would go to. And so go to the place that you believe in, because you're also putting yourself in there to heal, with that, your belief, as you just so well pointed out, Madeleine. And thirdly, do what that healer tells you to do. Do what that healer tells you to do. He says, otherwise you're wasting your time and your money. And I thought, from the mouth of this wonderfully wise man who doesn't read and write, but he has seen healing again and again and again, as have you, Madeleine, Dr. Randall. You've seen it. You've lived it. You are it.
Beautiful. Thank you for that.
Oh,
Antonio taught us, and you are an expert at this as well. We did medicine ceremonies with what's called ayahuasca, which is a mixture of herbs. And it's a whole thing that you prepare for in advance. It's not just go take something and trip out, like a lot of people think. It's the ceremony starts in the jungle with the preparation and the choosing of the right herbs and all of that. I found that to be so beautiful and magical. And then we do the ceremony where we partake of them. And we some of us, I certainly do, get visions. And I was wondering, did you ever of course you had many. What was your most profound, if you can say that, vision that you could share with us?
I'd like to share 2 aspects. that I've learned from 25 years of working with this ayahuasca, their shamanic, local Amazonian sacred medicine. And one aspect is these medicines are so powerful, they should not be taken recreationally. We know that, we say that, but my second trip to the Amazon with Antonio, my second time drinking this ayahuasca brew, the translator that we had with us, a 35-year-old grad student from Mexico City, bilingual, and he had been working for the summer with Antonio in the medicinal plant garden, and he agreed to be the translator for the ceremony. And could he partake? Sure. Madeline, he had a psychotic break in the middle of the ceremony. And our weaknesses, such as even when we go into surgery, the doctor wants to know here in the West, do you have heart trouble? Do you have COPD? Do you have, what's going on with you? Because sometimes the trauma of the surgery here in the West can exacerbate what you have as underlying conditions. The same is true for this. And the reason I know what happened, he ended up being taken back to his hometown of Mexico City. His parents came and got him and put him in a mental hospital for 2 years. He called me afterwards and told me what happened. He needed to go. That is what happened there. And the message for him and for me, and as he taught me, he said, as all medicines, not all medicines are good for everybody. Some people can't even take aspirin. Right. Some people are allergic to the goodness of peanuts, as we know. In other words, it's not for everybody all the time. And you certainly want to know who your doctor is. Even here in the West, if you're going to have surgery, don't you look up your doctor? You look at the school that they went to. You take you kind of look at their website and other people have had the same kind of surgery and, what's his or her success rate and so on and so forth. So you need to do that with your shamans as well to develop this relationship. This is not a fly-through kind of experience. So
I
for
agree.
me,
That's why I emphasized the preparation because, as you know, I'm a sun dancer too, and we don't take any drugs, or as a matter of fact, we don't even eat or drink for 4 days and 4 nights. But we prepare for that sun dance, meaning we cut out. Of course, I don't eat meat, but if you eat meat, you cut it out. You don't eat sugar. You don't eat salt for 6 months prior to sun dancing. You sweat, you cleanse so that you can go into that sun dance and you can be totally clear and it will be safe for you and nothing will happen to you. The people that do that have incredible visions to bring into the planet and do their work. And the people that do not prepare really have problems. They sweat it out. They suffer, but we get it out of the way in advance. And so it's about preparation or any sort of ceremony that alters your consciousness. We need, as you know, we need to prepare for it.
It's the same even in Western surgery. There's always the prep to do before the surgery to eliminate these kinds of foods or don't take any aspirin. And the foods or the prep or the, fast the night before. It's similar in the sense that it's not uniquely shamanic. In other words, you must prepare for this event. And the other caution I want to say is, just like all surgeries, there's not 110% guarantee on any surgery, meaning we just don't know. The rest is up to spirit and your karma, what's going to happen here. So you want the best surgeon here in the West. You want the best shaman or Sundance medicine man that you can get. And you have to understand the potency of all of this and be willing to understand that 0.0001% of the people don't make it through. They just don't. Something happens. So it's important.
Often I'll have people tell me, oh, I want to do that. I want to go to the Amazon and take ayahuasca. I'm going like, no, it's not like that.
No.
You need to be sure you're doing it with the right person that knows what they're doing. That it's a very controlled, and you need to prepare, and all that. It's not like I first said when I introduced it, not just to take something to trip out. it's not how it works. It's a ceremonial, it's a very sacred ceremony.
And in order for transformation to have, as opposed to a recreation, if you come for 1 week in the Amazon, you're recreational. I don't care what you think it is, because there's no continuity afterwards of integration into actual transformation in your life. Let me put this another way. You mentioned a moment ago about visions. Everybody would love to have 4th of July visions that they can come home and say, I saw, blah, 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 whoa. No, the visions may be a clue, but the transformation is going to happen over time.
Right.
It very much like Western medicine. When you go in and you're first diagnosed with, say, asthma or something, or even cardiovascular conditions, whatever your diagnosis, it's not a one trip to the doctor. It's an ongoing relationship with that physician, as you know, to move you closer, like you do with your patients. It's one time through, wow, that would be great. But the point of the matter is, even with our physicians here, it's that relationship in doing the next step and going a little deeper, or now here's the next step in your dietary changes and lifestyle changes and so on and so forth. So what it's about is not the 4th of July visions. It's about the transformation that happens. And for me, here I am, this daughter of a so-called psychotic mother, afraid to tell you who I am. So it's very interesting that what happens is the throat chakra, the thyroid and the throat chakra. The block is there. I used to sweat and turn purple and run out of classrooms when the teacher would ask me questions. And now, as you can tell, you can't shut me up. I mean, I'm open now. Not only did the surgery happen, but that's a great question. You asked me what was one of the most profound healings that have happened in the ayahuasca experience. And it came at a time when I had my surgery for my thyroid cancer. I was down in the Amazon apprenticing with a shaman. And during one of the sessions, these incredible spirit beings, a male and a female, I call them spirit doctors, human size, came up to me during the ceremony and started kissing my throat. And of course, as any cancer patient knows, you're always worried it's coming back.
Right.
So I said, oh my gosh, is it coming back? Do you have to do a healing? Is it coming back? And they said, no, my dear, we've come to give you your voice. And with that, my throat felt like it was this wide, and songs came out, magical healing songs came out. Subsequent to that, books started getting written. And as I said, that, from the shaky young girl from Minnesota who would sweat and run away in class if the teacher asked me a question, to somebody like this. Of course, it was the throat chakra, the thyroid cancer in the throat chakra that was asking to be healed by this invisible medicine of the spirit experience. And it changed it didn't change who I was. It allowed me to be who I was underneath it all.
Fantastic.
Yes. So that's just a fabulous
Well, we all
story
love who you are so much. So thank you for sharing that. Thank you.
Thank you.
I had an experience where, remember, we quested for what was our spirit animal or something in one ceremony? And I thought, I'd have a jaguar or a condor or something like that. And then all these animals came to me, during the ceremony and checked me out. They said, yeah, but I'm not for you. And then like the jaguar came and the condor came and the snakes came and everybody came. But what ended up being was a blue morpho butterfly, which was gigantic. It was bigger than the room. And I remember reaching out, like trying to touch it. And then the next day we went in a boat. We all were in a boat. I was sitting next to Antonio, and he always carried, but he pulled out this picture of like Mother Mary or Our Lady Guadalupe, which is blue primarily, and because the blue morpho was following me everywhere, and it was like following along with the boat. And then he pointed at the butterfly, he pointed at the Mary, and he pointed at me. And so he was teaching me. I carried that energy, that kind of energy, and it's since then, of course, is transpired in a number of ways, and I was so grateful for that vision. But like you said, you don't really know right away what it all means, and it unfolds for you, and it just leads you, and you just follow the energy and listen to it.
The great medicine, I think, that you are as a person and myself, the similarities are, we have great respect for Western medicine when it's needed at the right time.
Yes.
Yeah, it has its place. But we start, if we can, if the situation calls for something from the nature world and or invisible medicine of the spirit world or right relationship and so forth. So we do that soul doctoring as the title of your new book to come out here shortly. And I'm thinking to also, invite any of the listeners to stay very close in touch with you and me, because after COVID is over, let's go back to the jungle.
We're going.
So sign up.
Yeah.
Sign up.
The real shamanas. Yeah. Oh, this has just been so fabulous. And I just love you so much. Tell my listeners how they can get a hold of you, how they find your book, and what your website is and things like that.
Yes. If any of my books, my many books, you can just go to Amazon.com and look up my name, Connie Grauds, Grauds, under books, and get the list and the synopsis of the ones that might appeal to you. If you're interested in any women listening, if you're interested in sharing your women's stories of struggle and transformation, like the blue morpho butterfly you were talking about, that website is Jungle Juju Connie Grauds, one word, Jungle Juju Connie Grauds. And I'm certain if you just simply go online and look up Connie Grauds, you will see the many aspects of myself. If you need any healthcare advocacy, that's more than happy to help. That's simply ConnieGrauds.com. So the many aspects, just look up my name on the internet and you'll see both healthcare advocacy under Connie Grauds, writing your transformational women's stories in powerful groups is Jungle Juju Connie Grauds. And so join us there.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. And listen to the whole podcast here. Yes. Join us.
I'm so glad to have had you, because you are a game changer on the planet. And you are what you say you are. You're an authentic shamana. You're a game changer. You've helped hundreds of thousands of people through your work. And we're going to keep going here. And I just love that we've come back together.
I love it. The jungle has been holding us together all these years, my dear. In the heart, it certainly has. So we are twins. Thank you, listeners, viewers. We hope to see you in the jungle soon. And happy healing.
Bye-bye, honey. Bye. Love you.
Bye. Bye. Love you too.
This is Dr. Gail Randall from Soul Stories, and author of Soul Doctoring, Heal Yourself, Heal the Planet. I want to thank Saltology, our sponsor, at bathsalt.com, which fits perfectly into my medicine bag as it, like me, calls upon the ancient wisdom and modern technology to heal, especially with the stresses and ills of our modern times. The Bokak brand uses organic salts combined with organic essential oils sourced from ancient Egypt to provide a perfect remedy for your bathing ritual and healing from modern stresses. The Relief RX brand is a unique one-of-a-kind healing salt that uses organic CBD, treated with a unique emulsification process to create nanoparticles which easily enter the skin to most effectively heal and relieve aching muscles and joints. Whether from chronic inflammation or just a rough workout, this is the perfect healing bath, especially when you add the organic essential oils of neroli, lavender, eucalyptus, or grapefruit. Your body, mind, and soul will be lifted and soothed like never before. Go now to bathsalt.com. I also want to give special thanks to Larry Antonino and Agora Borealis Recording Studio for music and score, and also to closetotheearth.com for IT and computer assistance.